Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to everyone here today. I'm Kajal Bagwandi, and I'm honoured to welcome you to the State of Animal Welfare Address 2025. This year's SOA features a powerful keynote address by Fiona Miles, the PAWS Director, followed by an interesting panel discussion by influential voices from the sectors of companion, farm, and wildlife animal welfare, who are advancing integrated and community-based One Health strategies. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your commitment to creating a better future for all animals. Now, on a more personal note, my journey with PAWS started with a deep inset love for animals, but the emotion wasn't enough, especially for those who don't have a voice in the kind of world we live in today. And that's how the journey started. It was serendipitous, and the partnership was a catalyst for that love. And I feel so privileged to be part of an organization with the same kind of feel, but boundless energy, deep roots, and willing hands around the world, and action for the voiceless and those who are so deserving of our respect and empathy. PAWS has several ongoing campaigns. Break the Vicious Cycle, a campaign advocating for the end of captive lion breeding and the end of commercial trade of all big cats. Companion animals, showing our fellow human beings how we can better care for our beloved animals and make better choices for them. End the dog and cat meat trade, a very sad situation faced by many in Southeast Asia. Our Live Kinder campaign, teaching us how to make better choices. When we know better, we should actually do better. And farm animals, educating and advocating for better life for all those raised on farms and in factory farms. Now, these are just some ongoing campaigns, and many of you may ask, what can I do? Well, a little goes a long way. If you sign a petition, it really does make a difference. At the end of the day, all beating hearts feel, and we are here to help each other understand this and see them as living, breathing beings deserving of our respect, while also advocating for them. If we can influence a small group of people to make a positive change, the ripple effect can occur in communities and beyond. And this is how we can work together to create a better world for animals worldwide. Now, speaking of ambassadors, it's now my pleasure to introduce you PAWS' newest ambassador, Karishma Baste. Karishma?
Thank you very much, Kajal, and good morning, everyone. It is such an honor to stand here today among fellow hearts and hands who have helped devote themselves to the care and dignity of our animal kin. Thank you to PAWS for hosting this powerful gathering and for not only the work that they do globally, but for inviting me to be a part of their mission as one of their ambassadors, a lifelong advocate for the voiceless. My journey with animal welfare didn't start with an organization. It started with a knowing, a sacred, intuitive knowing that animals are not separate from us. They are not here for our entertainment or our consumption or our exploitation. They are our teachers, our companions, a vital part of this world. As a child, I never threw a tantrum if my parents refused to buy me a toy. But I did definitely throw a tantrum if they did not allow me to pick up a stray animal off the side of the road. I even volunteered at our local vet for many years and was probably a pain in his neck. But back then, I desperately wanted to become a vet. And I learned so much about animals and taking care of animals during my time there. My path eventually led me to become an actor and presenter. But I always vowed that I would help animals in need. And I'm so proud to say that I finally found the right fit in PAWS. Being an ambassador for them has felt like a coming home. I deeply resonate with their values, compassion, courage, and global impact. What moved me most was their hands-on work, rescuing animals from unimaginable cruelty and giving them a second chance at life, freedom, and peace. Being an ambassador isn't just about campaigns or appearances. It's a way of life. It's in the choices I make every day, the food I eat, the way I parent my daughter with reverence for all living beings, the brands I support, the stories I tell, the prayers I offer. You see, for me, animal welfare is spiritual work. It is the embodiment of ahimsa, the principle of nonviolence in thought, word, and action. It is a sacred remembering that we are all part of the same web of life. When one thread is harmed, the whole tapestry frays. I believe the world we are yearning for, the one that is just, kind, and sustainable, cannot exist without animals being treated with the love and dignity that they deserve. Because how we treat animals reflects how we treat our earth, and ultimately, how we treat each other. I show up for animals every day. Sometimes it's big and bold, like using my voice on national platforms to speak against the captive breeding industry. Sometimes it's quiet and small, like refusing to visit a venue that uses animals for entertainment. But every act matters. Every act creates a ripple. And that is what I want to leave you with today. You don't need a massive platform to make a massive difference. You don't need to be a vet or a wildlife expert to care. What you do need is love and the courage to let that love move you into action. I dream of a world where sanctuaries replace cages, where cruelty is no longer disguised as tradition or profit, where children grow up knowing that kindness to animals is not optional, it's essential. And I believe that world is possible. I see it every day, in the eyes of those who rescue, in the voices that speak up, and in the silent gratitude of the animals whose lives are changed. I will continue to walk this path with fierce compassion, with unwavering hope, and with the ancient knowing that when we protect animals, we protect something sacred within ourselves. Each time we choose kindness over cruelty, reverence over domination, presence over profit, we remember who we truly are: guardians, stewards, keepers of the wild. May we rise not just for the animals, but with them. May their freedom remind us of our own. May their healing lead us back to balance. May our love, quiet or roaring, small or mighty, become the legacy that we leave behind. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that heartfelt speech, Karishma, and those gentle reminders that really touched my heart. I'm now honored to introduce you to one of South Africa's leading animal welfare warriors. She is consistently fighting for and advocating on legislative and on the ground to ensure that we create a world where humans treat animals with respect, understanding, and empathy. Fiona Miles has been the director of PAWS since 2006, and I can't hear what she has to say. Fiona, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Kajal, and it was really inspiring to hear the words that you've both said. So, honourable guests, esteemed colleagues, government representatives, civil society leaders, partners in advocacy, and all those joining us online, good morning and a very warm welcome. It is really an honour to stand before you today as we gather at the 2025 State of Animal Welfare Address in South Africa, a moment of reflection, urgency, and deep resolve. SOA is not simply an annual event. It is a mirror held up to our society. It reflects our values, our progress, and the unrelenting work that still lies ahead to ensure that animals, farmed, wild, and companion, are treated with respect, empathy, and understanding. Animal welfare is not just a moral issue. It's a health issue, a development issue, a justice issue, and critically, it is a human well-being issue. Because when animals suffer, we suffer. Let us begin with naming the reality. Across our country, animals continue to experience avoidable suffering under systems that too often fail them. Companion animals are abandoned or overbred without access to veterinary care. Farmed animals are subjected to industrial-scale cruelty in factory farms and long-distance transport. Wild animals, including our lions, are bred for bullets, commodified for tourism, or trafficked in the shadows of our borders. It is not only a tragedy, but a public health hazard, a driver of pandemics, and a system of a broken relationship we must urgently repair between humans, animals, and nature. Companion animals are not just pets, they are family, protectors, and often the first line of emotional, physical safety in our communities. Yet across South Africa, millions of dogs and cats live in conditions of neglect, abandonment, and disease. This past year, PAWS South Africa led transformative efforts to address this crisis. In partnership with Sidewalk Specials, Mzananda Animal Clinic, and the PDSA, we launched a targeted sterilization and vaccination campaign in Uniondale, Khayelitsha, and the Doorns, 3 communities emblematic of the broader systemic challenges. These animals were sterilized and vaccinated, and every one of them received parasite treatment and post-operative care. But this was more than a medical intervention. It was a community empowerment strategy. We distributed educational materials and hosted outreach events to promote responsible pet ownership. Together, we built trust, knowledge, and resilience. At the heart of our work is the Responsible Pet Ownership Program. This initiative educates current and future pet owners on the responsibilities that come with animal care. This program fosters empathy, reduces abandonment, and builds healthier communities. Animal welfare organizations like PAWS are not just service providers, we are community partners. And we need our government to recognize this role, to fund it, and to integrate it into public health and development strategies. Through our mass sterilization campaigns, we've reached thousands of animals in underserved communities, reducing overpopulation and empowering local veterinarian systems. Our rabies prevention and awareness work continues to protect both people and pets, reinforcing that public health starts at the community level. This is why PAWS, in collaboration with the Global Alliance for Rabies Control, or GARC, are working together with organizations in South Africa to be part of a global network of communities against rabies through an initiative called the Rabies Centers of Excellence. These centers serve as a national hub for mapping, training, and strategic intervention, empowering welfare groups with the tools and data that they need to operate at scale. Rabies is a preventable disease, yet it continues to claim the lives of many due to fragmented delivery and under-resourced systems. Our collaboration with GARC is not just a partnership, it is a blueprint for national rabies elimination. But why does this matter? Because companion animal overpopulation is not just an animal issue, it is a public health issue. Free-roaming dogs contribute to rabies transmission, road accidents, and community fear. Rabies alone claims tens of thousands of lives globally each year, and 95% of human rabies causes and cases are linked to dog bites. This is preventable, and we are proving that prevention works. Yet we cannot do this alone. In our recent Western Cape municipal study on the state of companion animals, PAWS uncovered a troubling reality. Municipalities are failing to deliver on their constitutional mandate to safeguard communities, as they neglect to humanely manage the animal overpopulation crisis. A study revealed that nearly 90% of pets in Langa, for instance, are unsterilized, contributing to an animal overpopulation crisis that affects public health, safety, and social cohesion. Without intervention, 100 unsterilized animals and their offspring can produce over 230,000 animals in just 4 years. This is not just a statistic, this is a warning to us. Our research showed that at municipal shelters, sterilization and vaccination are either absent or underfunded, leaving communities vulnerable and animals neglected. This is not just a policy gap, it's a governance failure. And this is why we are calling on government for legislative reform at the local level. Municipalities must enact and enforce bylaws that prohibit unregistered breeding, mandate sterilization, and empower animal welfare organizations to support them. The benefits of data-driven mass sterilization far outweigh the costs of impoundment and euthanasia. These reforms are not only humane, but they are also economically sound and socially transformative. We also recognize the need to capacity build within law enforcement. And in partnership with the Carthorse Protection Association, we train members of the South African Police Services on the Animal Protection Act. These members are often the first responders to cases of cruelty, neglect, and violence. By equipping them with legal and animal welfare knowledge, we are strengthening the justice system for animals. Animal cruelty is a crime, and it must be treated as such. This is what systemic change looks like: community-based, data-driven, and justice-orientated. Let us now turn to the animals that feed us and feed our nation, and the systems that too often fail them. South Africa's farm animals, from chickens to cattle, are the silent victims of an industrial model that prioritizes profit over welfare, speed over sustainability, and volume over value. But this model is not only unethical, it is dangerous. According to the World Health Organization's antimicrobial resistance, or AMR, caused 1.27 million deaths in 2019 and could result in 10 million deaths annually by 2050 if no action is taken. In South Africa, the overuse of antibiotics in farm animals, often to compensate for poor welfare conditions, is a major contributor. Research shows that 73% of antimicrobials globally are used in farmed animals. Often, antimicrobials are used to sustain intensive farming systems that rely on confinement, stress, and unnatural growth rates. These systems are breeding grounds for disease, and the antibiotics used to suppress outbreaks are losing their effectiveness. The result? A food system that is fragile, unsafe, and unsustainable. At the 8th World One Health Congress, PAWS presented groundbreaking research, which we named a One Health approach to tackling AMR to better animal welfare policies for reduced antimicrobial usage. The findings were clear. The poor animal welfare is a driver of antimicrobial resistance, and AMR is not just a pharmaceutical issue, it's a systems failure. When animals are bred for high performance and fast growth, confined, stressed, and denied natural behaviors, they become vulnerable to disease. The response? Routine, excessive use of antimicrobials. This cycle is not sustainable and undermines food safety, public health, and the economic viability of farming itself. This is why animal welfare must be recognized as a primary prevention. It is not a downstream fix, but it is an upstream solution for high welfare farming systems that reduce disease susceptibility, lower antibiotic use, and build resilience. PAWS are advocating for a paradigm shift from harmful industrial confinement to healthy, high welfare, regionally appropriate, resilient systems. Systems where animals can express natural behaviors, where disease is prevented through good husbandry, where there's no routine medication, where farmers are supported to transition to agroecological models that safeguard food security and are better for animals, better for people, and better for the planet. This year, at the FAO's conference in Nairobi, PAWS co-hosted a high-level session with the African Union Inter-African Bureau for Animal Resources. This session revolved around integrating animal welfare into One Health strategies to curb AMR. The message was resounding. Animal welfare is not a luxury. It's a frontline defense against global health threats. the African Union Framework for AMR Control and the Animal Welfare Strategy for Africa both call for multi-sectoral collaboration and the integration of animal welfare into disease prevention. 4PAWS' contributions in Nairobi helped solidify this mandate, and we are proud to be part of the movement that is shaping Africa's response to AMR. The appetite for change in Africa is real. This is why the inclusion of 4PAWS in the Technical Working Group for South Africa's Net Zero Development Pathways for South Africans to have a good life by 2025 is so critical. We bring a unique lens, one that connects climate resilience, food security, and animal welfare. Poor welfare is both a cause and consequence of unsustainable farming. By embedding animal welfare into food systems policy, we can reduce emissions, improve animal health, and support farmers in transitioning to agroecological models. As the only civil society organisation representing animal welfare in the Technical Working Group, 4PAWS are honoured to represent the animal welfare agenda, and we advocate for the inclusion of animal welfare in AMR action plans, the redirection of subsidies towards humane, sustainable farming, the adoption of true cost accounting that reflects the environmental and ethical costs of meat production. Imagine a future where animals are raised in environments that support their natural behaviours, where antibiotics are used responsibly, and where food systems nourish both people and the planet. That future is possible, and we need to build it together. This is not just advocacy, it is a systems transformation, and it is urgent. Because when we treat animals as commodities, we create systems that are brittle, unjust, and unsafe. But when we centre welfare in our policies, when we see animals as sentient beings, we build systems that are resilient, ethical, and sustainable. In the wild animal space, our advocacy against captive lion breeding and that industry remains one of our defining battles, not just for the lions, but for the soul of South African conservation itself. The commercial trade in big cats, from cub petting to bone exports, is not only a moral failure, but it is also a public health threat. Captive breeding facilities, often unregulated and profit-driven, create the perfect storm for zoonotic disease emergence. Poor hygiene, overcrowding, inbreeding, and stress compromise animal immunity and increase the risk of pathogen spillover, not just to other animals, but to humans as well. These facilities are not conservation centres, they are reservoirs of risk. One shocking example is where 27 big cats were found with severe mange, cubs unable to walk due to neurological disease, and caracals so obese that they could not even groom themselves. These animals were kept in squalid, overcrowded cages without food, water, or medical care. This is not an isolated incident. This is one example of a system that is broken and that prioritizes profit over welfare and spectacle over science. This is why, in partnership with renowned photojournalist Erin Gokowski, Terramata Studios, and Four Corners Films, 4PAWS produced the documentary film Dethroned. This is a bold and unflinching look at the global big cat trade and its devastating consequences. From the illegal trafficking of jaguars in Peru to the industrial scale farming of lions and tigers in South Africa, Dethroned exposes the uncomfortable truth. We are consuming big cats to death. The film explores our cultural obsession with power, dominance, and exoticism, and how that obsession is driving the extinction and exploitation of some of the world's most iconic species. It challenges viewers to confront the systems we've normalized and to imagine a different future, one rooted in respect, not ownership. Dethroned has already been screened globally to key stakeholders, and we are proud that it has received international and national recognition. Our next steps include bringing this film to Parliament, as their decisions will determine whether South Africa continues to be a global hub for cruelty or a leader in ethical conservation. 4PAWS calls on the South African government to accelerate the closure of the captive breeding industry. The current legislative framework surrounding wildlife is fragmented. We need uniform, enforceable laws that reflect the sentience of animals and the interconnectedness of their welfare with our own health and safety. When wild animals are treated as commodities, we all pay the price in biodiversity loss, in public health risk, and the erosion of our moral compass. Let us not wait for another outbreak, another expose, or another extinction. Let us act now with courage, compassion, and clarity of purpose. Over the past 3 years, PAWS and its civil society partners have been at the heart of the historic negotiations for the World Health Organization's pandemic agreement, ensuring that prevention and One Health are positioned as foundational elements in the global strategy to prevent future pandemics. The intergovernmental negotiating body sessions have shaped an international consensus. The prevention of pandemics must begin at the human-animal-environment interface. This has been the life's work of organizations like PAWS and many others in the One Health community. But why does prevention through One Health matter, you may ask? The rationale for embedding prevention in the pandemic agreement through a One Health approach is multifaceted. The prevention of pathogen spillover from animals to humans by addressing ecological, meteorological, and anthropogenic drivers reduces the risk of and emergence. This shift from a reactive to a proactive model not only saves lives, but it is the most cost-effective way and equitable strategy. It builds community resilience, especially in the global south, where outbreaks tend to have disproportionate impacts. It also supports the detection of potential risk at the earliest stages and enhances pandemic preparedness through improved surveillance, multi-sectoral collaboration, and knowledge sharing. The One Health high-level expert panel's One Health approach is integrated and unifying to sustainably balance and optimize the health of people, animals, and ecosystems that mobilizes multiple sectors, disciplines, and communities to tackle threats to health, all the while addressing interconnected needs such as clean water, safe food, biodiversity, and climate resilience. It is a forward-looking strategy that directly responds to the reality that over 75% of emerging infectious diseases in humans are zoonotic in origin. To operationalize prevention at the national level, governments must strengthen One Health collaboration by fostering cross-sectoral coordination between human, animal, and environmental health systems to prevent the re-emergence and spread of pathogens. This requires investing in community engagement, as local communities are often the first to encounter zoonotic threats and must be trained, equipped, and empowered to respond effectively. Responsible animal husbandry practices, such as reducing livestock density, improving animal welfare, and curbing the overuse of antimicrobials in agriculture, are also critical to mitigating antimicrobial resistance and zoonotic risk. Integrated surveillance systems that enable real-time data sharing across sectors are essential for early detection and rapid response. In parallel, governments must enforce strong regulatory frameworks to curb high-risk commercial wildlife trade and limit habitat encroachment through sustainable land use planning that prioritizes biodiversity conservation. Legal and regulatory mechanisms should institutionalize prevention as a shared mandate across the ministries of health, agriculture, and environment. Importantly, frontline communities must be supported through equitable access to technical expertise, sustained investment, and international cooperation to ensure One Health approaches are implemented effectively and inclusively. So what is the role of animal welfare in pandemic prevention? Animal welfare is central to pandemic prevention. Improving welfare standards reduces the risk of zoonotic spillover and vector-borne diseases. Surveillance alone is insufficient unless paired with ethical and sustainable practices that respect ecological balance. International standards developed by the World Organization for Animal Health demonstrate that improving animal health and welfare aligns directly with global health security. High-risk practices such as wildlife trade and intensive farming must be addressed through binding commitments and practical alternatives that support community transitions to sustainable livelihoods, as well as ensure the welfare of animals used for our benefit. South Africa has made progress and there is opportunity. Our country is positioning itself as a One Health champion. In 2023, the National One Health Working Group convened a national bridging workshop by the quadripartite, making South Africa the 23rd African country to do so. The workshop brought together One Health stakeholders across human and animal health sectors to identify collaborative gaps and co-develop a roadmap for improving detection, prevention, and control of zoonoses. PAWS was honoured to participate, marking a milestone in recognising the role of animal welfare in national health security. Now, as South Africa develops its National One Health Action Plan, it must build on this foundation with a whole-of-society approach. The plan must institutionalise coordination mechanisms across national and provincial governments, define roles and responsibilities, and embed animal welfare, prevention, and ecosystem protection as non-negotiable pillars. It must be informed by the principles articulated in the pandemic agreement, prevention at source, equity in implementation, and the centrality of animal health and welfare. Today, we stand at a crossroads. Governments, especially ours, have a unique and urgent opportunity to shift from fragmented, reactionary health responses towards integrated prevention-first strategies, grounded in the One Health approach. We must recognise that health systems are deeply political. They reflect the structures and values of our societies. Currently, our systems are built to react to disease too often after harm has already occurred, but the future demands more. True health outcomes require behavioural change, systems thinking, and the courage to act together. If we start now and act with intention and urgency, South Africans can live healthier, more resilient lives by 2050 and beyond. We already see promising signs of these shifts. The newly formed Western Cape One Health Subcommittee offers a platform to reimagine health. But to move from vision to action, we must commit to establishing legal mandates for One Health coordination bodies that are accountable and well-resourced, providing cross-sectoral training and professional development that equips professionals from health, agriculture, and environment with the tools to collaborate effectively. Securing domestic financing dedicated to prevention strategies, not just treatment. Engaging meaningfully with civil society and local communities as key partners, not just beneficiaries in the health system. Developing data-driven surveillance systems that are linked to community-based risk assessments, ensuring early warning and timely action. This is not just a call to government, it's a call to all of us, to academia, civil society, professionals, and communities. A call to build a future where prevention is not an afterthought, but our first and most powerful response. The world doesn't need a hero, it needs solidarity, and prevention is our collective responsibility. Humans, animals, and ecosystems' health must be the measure of our success. Let us enshrine prevention, not just in treaties, but in practice here in South Africa and across the globe, because there is no viable One Health approach without animal welfare. PAWS remains committed to supporting governments in this transition. Animal welfare must be a pillar, not a footnote, in antimicrobial resistance strategies, pandemic preparedness, South Africa's nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, and the Sustainable Development Goals. We also need animal welfare to be integrated into the African Animal Welfare Strategy, the pandemic agreement, and into every sectoral policy where the health of animals, humans, and ecosystems intersect. At PAWS, we have laid out an ambitious path towards our vision to mainstream animal welfare into global One Health implementation by 2038. This means strengthening national capacity, enhancing pandemic prevention, integrating animal, environmental, and human health systems, promoting multi-sectoral collaboration, and improving animal health and welfare standards. This is not only possible, it is already happening in parts, but we must move from isolated projects to collaborative and coordinated national strategies. To our government officials, we need champions in Parliament, in the Ministries of Health, Agriculture and Environment, not just to approve plans, but to lead the transformation and to ensure animal welfare as part of One Health for a better South Africa. We need to collaborate on updating AMR action plans and to ensure animal welfare indicators are included in climate adaptation efforts. Too often, animal welfare remains politically inconvenient, but the consequences of ignoring it are increasingly undeniable. Embedding animal welfare in global fora is not easy. We understand the resistance and the silos, but we also know this: the future will belong to those who center compassion in their systems. Africa must not be a latecomer to this movement. Africa must lead. Our cultural histories, Ubuntu, coexistence, and respect for nature give us a powerful narrative. Let us reclaim that narrative in our policy making. Let us not wait for another crisis to act. But PAWS does not act alone. We are proud to be a convener of animal welfare organizations across Africa. We know that collaboration with government, NGOs, academia, and communities is the only way forward. We are here to offer solutions, to bring implementable models, support government capacity, and to help connect local realities with global ambition. To our fellow NGOs, we must be proactive, strategic, and united. Let us coordinate our asks. Let us build bridges to governments, not just barricades. Let us invest in African-led leadership, research, and infrastructure so that no one is left behind, not people and not the animals. In closing, let me remind us all, animal welfare is not a fringe issue. It is central to the well-being of our nation. It shapes the food we eat, the air we breathe, the pandemics we face, the values we pass to the next generation. It is time to bring animal welfare in from the margins, into policy, into budgets, into science, and into our shared vision of a thriving, just South Africa. The work is far from over, but we are no longer walking in the dark. Together, we are building a country, a continent, and a future where every life matters and no animal suffers in silence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fiona. That was incredibly inspiring, and you've given us so much food for thought. I really love the fact that South Africa is positioning itself as a champion in One Health. Now, I hope you're all settled in and ready as our panel discussion is about to begin. It's entitled Positioning Animal Welfare in the One Health Framework, Insights from Practice. It's about to start, and if you have any questions, please add them in the comment section, and we will do our best to answer all of them during the discussion. Dr. Tedson Nkoana has a PhD degree in zoology and is the academic project coordinator for the research chair, People, Health and Places, One Health. He coordinates programs, content development, communication, reporting on events in One Health. He's passionate about education, youth development, and working within communities. I'm going to hand you over to Dr. Tedson, who's going to moderate the panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Kajal, for your wonderful intro. And to our audiences joining us from, our audiences joining us from all over the world. We are very much grateful for giving us your time today. Now, we've heard quite a bit from one of our speakers today, and that is Fiona Miles, the director of PAWS, who are hosting us today here today. But we've got two other wonderful speakers, Dr. André Coetzer and Dr. Masika, Sophie. Dr. André Coetzer is from the Global Alliance on Rabies Control. And Masika is from the Global Federation on Animals. I just want to briefly hear a bit from them about the work that they are currently doing. André, over to you.
Thank you so much, Tedson. So GARC is a non-profit organization that was established almost 20 years ago. And as an organization, our focus is on driving the global rabies elimination progress. But our approach is a little bit different because our approach relies on engaging with and empowering stakeholders to do this work. And this ranges from that community level champion all the way to national government. And we believe that this is not only a sustainable approach to rabies elimination, but it's a way to catalyze the One Health approach. And although we've got various channels with which we provide the support, our Rabies Centers of Excellence is probably one of our most prominent programs at this point in time, because it really is aimed at improving animal welfare by raising the profile of these animal welfare groups living within rabies endemic countries.
Thank you, André. Masika?
Thank you so much, Tedson. So I work with the World Federation for Animals, which is a global organization that brings other global organizations together to form a coalition. We are over, I think, 80 members now. So the work we do is a bit different from what Andrea's organization does, is we advocate for the inclusion of animals at the highest policy-making level, so which is the international level. So we make sure at the highest policy-making levels, animals are included, because these policies will be domesticated at the regional levels, at the national levels, and hopefully at the community levels. We specifically focus on the health streams for the work that I lead, and that is the health streams around the World Health Organization, which Fiona has already mentioned about when it comes to pandemic work. We also focus on antimicrobial resistance, which is both from the human health side, animal health and environment, and we closely work with the United Nations Environmental Programme, which now links the climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution, and all those three within the nexus of health, and health that also touches on animal health. So we want to ensure that animals at the highest level are already prioritized, and then we see an impact all the way to the community level.
Thank you so much. Now, the embracing and the ownership of policies and approaches such as One Health, which is something quite critical today in our discussion. Doing this at different levels of society is critical in the implementation and the trickle down from where these policies are made all the way down to civil society, where they need to have an impact and they're implemented by different actors. And I'm sure that our speakers today have different experiences on this, coming from the areas of rabies control, animal trade, and AMR, and sustainable farming systems. To André, what have been the key enablers of your organization, GARC, to implement rabies control at community level?
Well, that's an excellent question, Tedson. I think we have to understand that policy is owned at the national level, and governments also face programmatic and logistical restrictions. So what we have seen is success lies in not just throwing our hands up in there and saying, well, it's the program is not reaching everywhere. We've seen success come from saying, who can we work with to support this policy at a community level, to support the implementation, but in a way that we are all contributing to that national effort. We all have one common goal, and who is vested in this, and how can we bring them in and make sure they're a valuable contributor so that we're all pulling this cart in the same direction.
No, thanks so much there, André. Masika, can you share some examples of how your work has influenced policy or has had a systems-wide change on AMR and sustainable farming?
Okay. So, I mean, Fiona has already mentioned what AMR is, but very quickly, AMR, for the lay audience, is a phenomenon where the antibiotics or the drugs that we use stop being effective because the bacteria that they're supposed to treat find ways to evade the treatment, and that creates a really big problem both for animal health and for human health. Now, how our work in terms of advocacy has been able to create a shift within the AMR space is we are pushing for policies that first look at the problem from an holistic perspective. So not just looking at it from a response perspective. There, like we say, there are many ways to kill a rat. So no pun intended in this context, but also policies that query why are we seeing a problem of antimicrobial resistance in animal health. What are the antibiotics being used for? How much is being used for, especially for the African context where we see that we don't have enough data on the same? And what can we do to ensure that this is not a problem? And if we do this, then what happens? So we want policies that are able to be applicable at the level that is felt most, which is at the community level, and Andrea is emphasizing that. And lastly, we want the impact. We want policies that are impactful. We want policies that either have a direct impact on animal health, so the animals themselves, but we understand that especially for countries that have a very close relationship with animals, animals are just not food. Animals are not just identity. There's so much more when it comes to animals. So we want direct and indirect impact both to animals, but also to the public health within these settings.
No, thank you there, Masika. Now, to Fiona, just share with us the role that civil society and global organizations play in addressing some of the gaps in the enforcement, regulation, and public education in animal exploitation.
I think it's important to understand a little bit about the exploitation as well. South Africa, for example, is intensively breeding big cats for commercial purposes. And how the public is sold on that is that it's a conservation effort, that these animals are orphaned or, taken away from the wild, or they've somehow ended up in these captive facilities. But actually, it's a commercial system. And within that commercial system, the exploitation is huge. The animals don't receive proper veterinary care. They don't receive proper nutrition. And that then creates this environment for disease and everything else. So the role of civil society is to bring this to light and to show the public and to educate the public in terms of their choices. And that's why we have all around us Live Kinder, because sometimes what we're being sold as consumers is not the truth. And so we need to ensure that we understand as people that what is true conservation, what is intensive breeding and commercialization and commodification of wild animals. That's a legal trade. And then, of course, there's a huge illegal trade that happens as well. So this all needs to be brought to light for us as consumers, but also for the government to understand what the level of intensity is and the size and scope of the problem so that we can address it through policy.
Oh, thank you so much. Now, you've all touched on something quite important, which is the intrinsic value of animals, their right to exist. And that, of course, speaks to animal welfare, something that all of us share views on here. So, perhaps our audience here, just to shed some light on some of the work that I do. Now, at Future Africa, we have a rural pet health program that we run in one of the sites in Limpopo. And through that program, one really gets to see some of the challenges, some of the gaps, and the successes of how policies sort of trickle down to the layman on the street and what they mean or what they can mean to people on the ground. Now, I pose this to our speakers here to say, in your animal welfare work, you get to observe these things as well. You get to observe gaps and successes of policy implementation and what it means in your different constituencies or the level of society where you're working. And you have some tools on how you get to measure this. I'll ask André this question now. In your rabies control work, how does GARC's surveillance and education tools that I know you have, how have those helped to institutionalize animal welfare in the public health strategy?
So when we talk about these tools and resources that are provided to stakeholders, they've been developed to fill a critical gap, not just within the broader system, but in empowering the offerings of these groups. And to us, it's imperative that we understand that these welfare groups, they exist and they serve a purpose and they serve communities. And if they didn't do that, those communities and those animals would suffer. And these tools and resources contribute to the offerings that these groups can make, and it benefits those communities. But the uptake is reliant on providing things that these groups benefit from when using them. Yeah. And it raises their own value within the broader system. We firmly believe all stakeholders are valuable and contribute significantly at a community level. But it's imperative that we help them be the best representative that they can be, and that's where these tools and resources come in.
No, definitely. Thanks there, André. To Masika, along the same sort of theme, what successes and gaps can you share in your area of integrating farm animal welfare into One Health planning?
Yeah, I think with this I will answer with the newest baby in the global international space, which is the pandemic treaty. And South Africa was at the forefront of this treaty, leading as one of the co-chairs of the INB. So one of the successes we saw even before any kind of advocacy is a level of knowledge amongst the different countries on what One Health is as a broad concept. Because this is something that, especially for African countries, they've been practicing for a very long time. They just didn't term it One Health. Living harmoniously with nature, living with animals, making sure that there's a segregated area where animals are living. That is what One Health is, and that knowledge was already there from the beginning. But after that, it's a curiosity from African leaders and African member states to want to understand what is this additional thing that we are bringing on board that we are calling One Health, and what is animal welfare, what role does it play within One Health? And we see that in how we now got the pandemic agreement or the pandemic treaty that includes pandemic prevention, primary prevention, and One Health. That is a very big success for us to get to a point where there is a treaty that recognizes that with pandemics, it's not only human health, it's animal health and animal welfare within that context. And countries have asked, is this good for us? When we are talking about animal welfare, is this good for us? Is this good for our people? Is this better for our communities when we are thinking about protecting communities and looking at equity-oriented approaches? To me, that is one of the greatest successes, the curiosity of countries to want to get what is best for their communities and for their people back home in terms of owning the process from the beginning and not just signing a document because you're at an international policy space. It's looking at a document critically to be able to put things that benefit the people back home, and animal welfare has been part of it, which is a great success.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, thanks for that. To Fiona now, around just the same sort of theme there. How does the global wildlife trade threaten the One Health approach? And what trends have you observed in the different regions?
Yes, the global trade in live animals is a huge threat. You know, in countries that are moving animals from one space to another, the entire, as I mentioned earlier, and I think the entire life cycle, for example, if I use the big cats, is one that's shrouded in poor welfare. And these animals are exposed, they suffer all sorts of illnesses. And when those animals are traded elsewhere, that it just moves the problem somewhere else. So we're also looking at the scale of it. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of animals leaving this country on a regular basis to supply various facilities around the world. It's sort of a ticking time bomb. There's something, you know, that can happen, and it just takes one moment for everything to change. So what's really needed is for us to ensure that we're not participating this global problem, and that the laws and the permitting systems are much better scrutinized, because everybody's using the same reasons for the trade, as in it's legal, it's a commercial enterprise, and it's for zoological purposes. But it's obviously not the case, because these are animals that are intensively bred for commercial reasons. So what we need to ensure is that we as South Africa really sort of look at our export and our breeding permitting systems, that we reduce and halt and reverse the domestication of our wild animals, and that we encourage and educate people around the world about the usage of these wild animals and for which purposes. Often they're consumed. So lion bones are consumed. Their bones are boiled down for glue and for other consumables in traditional medicines. Where people are consuming that. And so it's therefore time for us to look at the entire sort of approach from a global perspective.
No, definitely. I think you answered partly my next question for you there, and I'm glad you touched on South Africa. What perspectives are there can you use in South Africa and other countries, and looking at the alignment of wildlife trade policies with what is there internationally in terms of One Health goals and also biodiversity goals? What perspectives can you share when it comes to our alignment in the country with what is there globally?
We have to take a very, very critical look at our policies at the moment, which there's such a, I would say, a slow pace in terms of making a change. So there was a political will to stop the domestication of lions and close down the breeding of big cats, for example. The wheels have turned so slowly that in the meantime, in the last 4 or 5 years since that decision was made, how many more animals have come into this world? How many more have been traded? How many more have, we're talking about thousands of animals. So South Africa must have a critical look and say, look, we want to be a leader in this space, because our country is so incredibly diverse when it comes to our biodiversity, and people want to come to South Africa. They want to see our country for its beauty and biodiversity, and yet we're allowing intensive farming, we're allowing intensive breeding, commodification of wild animals, and we need to sort of align with those international policies and global treaties and actually say we're going to take a lead on this. We want to be the forerunners and ensure that our policies meet that.
No, thank you. I'm sure we have some questions from our audiences from all over the world. And please keep bringing them in. This is the time to be asking questions, because we have the right speakers here to answer those questions. We first have a question for André. That is saying, one of our audience members is saying, what role does community ownership play in sustaining rabies elimination program? And you touched on this earlier on, André. Perhaps further elaborate on it for the sake of our viewer.
Absolutely. I think it's imperative. It's such an interesting question, the importance of community ownership. And the reality is, if you do not have community ownership with any program, if you don't have that buy-in, the program will fall flat. But buy-in from the community equates to an understanding from that community as to why this is important. And if we have communities understanding the importance and providing their support, that's when we get the synergy we need for these programs to be successful. And if we don't have community buy-in, there's a broken link in the system somewhere. And something needs to be corrected to actually get all of these parts moving together and the programs to be successful.
Thanks. I hope our viewer caught the answer there. There's another question for Masika, and this one goes, how can your lower middle income countries, the so-called LMICs, as we've come to know them, like South Africa, embed humane livestock practices without undermining farmer livelihoods? I think this is quite an important question. Thank you for that question there to our audience.
Yeah, I like that it touches on the economic part of sustainable farming. So I would look at this in two angles. First is the intensive farming systems. An intensive farm system monopolizes the farming industry within a limited number of people who run that industry, meaning this already takes away the economic benefit from the local farmers who previously within the traditional farming systems, you would have every household would have cattle or pigs or goats, so there's direct income to that specific household. Second is on the direct impact of sustainable farming systems. When animals are raised well, when animals are kept in proper housing systems, when animals are treated when they get sick, the animals don't get sick. There's an economic benefit in terms of farmers don't have to spend a lot of money in getting the medication to treat the animals. But there's also the pride. Like I said, for most low and middle income countries, livestock is not only for food. It's the pride that I have these animals, they're healthy looking, they're well kept, that the communities want to, because communities don't want to have a pack of livestock that are skinny and they're not well kept. So it's different dimensions to why we are continuously advocating for proper husbandry, but also less intensification of our farming system so that we keep the economic benefits in our farmers' pockets, not just in a specific industry driven by a small group of people.
No, yeah. Thank you there, Masika. And another question, this one I think will be more appropriate to Fiona from one of our audience members that says, how can public awareness campaigns be used to reduce zoonotic disease risk from wildlife exploitation?
It's a great question. Thank you very much. Public awareness campaigns are really critical to provide the education that we need. For instance, in South Africa, there are many facilities that are open to the public that encourage interaction with animals, cuddling baby animals, interacting with them and so forth. But when we understand what that animal is going through and understand what their life is like in reality, I think we'd think twice before agreeing to visit those facilities. We, as for PAWS, want to encourage people to rather visit wildlife nature reserves, seeing animals in their true habitats, investing our tourism funding into wilder spaces and not into commercial and commercially driven spaces that encourage cruelty.
Yeah, thanks so much. And now we've got an audience member that is with us saying their name. We have Bob Smith there that is asking the question, if policy about law and at the core of law is language and meaning, then the only way we will achieve One Health goals will be to bring animals into the context of legal rights and not welfare. Language matters. Who wants to comment on that?
I can comment on that because this is a discussion and a debate we've had for a while. When it comes to legal processes, even without animal-related legal processes, even with the human sector, it's very difficult to get anything moving within the international policy space. So what we have found to start doing is work with the low-hanging fruits, and I agree with him. If we have legality, if we put this into a legal framework, it will be the most effective way to implement One Health goals. But where the world is at right now, we need to work on the low-hanging fruits, which is welfare, then progressively get to where we technically want to be. But countries are very reluctant to put anything into something that is legally binding because of the understanding is still not there as widely as we hope that it should be. So we hope to get there, but at this point, I think welfare is our foot in the door. And like we say, you have to be on the table to have this conversation or to make any change. So if we go in a direction that gets us off the table, we actually do our animals injustice.
Yes, definitely. Another question there from a Graham Richards that says, what is, and Graham Richards is addressing the speakers here. It's saying, what is their inner collective or network forming out of this network incredible work being done? How can NGOs and stakeholders connect and maximize impact? I'm sure everyone is salivating for that one there, hey? Who wants to go for it?
Go ahead.
So if I answer this question from the rabies and at the same time in companion animal welfare perspective, I think what we see is and this is my opinion, every welfare group is making a significant impact to that one community or two communities that they serve. But what we're seeing too often are groups working in silos. They're not collaborating with each other. They're not collaborating with the state. And these are opportunities to maximize impact if we're just willing to take a step back and say, I'm not too big to ask for a friend in this situation. And that's where we get this wave rolling, is when we start seeing groups going, I'm willing to collaborate with any other stakeholder who's got the same mindset as me, and that is improving animal welfare comes first, not who gets the glory for doing the work. That's when we start seeing real change at almost like a wave-like movement going forward.
And breaking down silos, it's part of what One Health is about, bringing in that collaborative spirit. Who else wants to comment on that one? Or
I think just the comment of it's a movement, and that's what we need to be working towards, is this sort of global ambition that we're all working in the same direction. I like the imagery of the wave, because it is a movement, and the more people, as we heard from our ambassadors earlier on, every person that we touch can add that extra ripple into that wave. So yes, completely agree with André.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so
I
much.
think I need to add my voice on that because
Please.
we're also
Yeah.
debating.
Okay.
Yeah, for us, and that's why the World Federation was formed. The World Federation for Animals was formed because it's important at that level to speak with one voice. Policymakers don't want to hear from 100 organizations. But if 100 organizations come together, curate their message on what we want to put out there, we even have more weight when we're speaking, because we are representing the voice of 100 other global organizations that are in this space. So I would say coalitions are good, and if anyone is interested, please check us out. You could, I think we would be, we would welcome new members to join our federation.
Thank you so much, Masika. We've got one other question from a Julie Poyser. It would be nice to know where our audience members are coming from country-wise. Julie is saying, what are the plans for policy change at a national level? The government also needs to lead change in animal welfare laws in owning power breeds. Who wants to attempt that one?
I think I'm going to give a very nondescript answer for this question, and it's more to do with the development of policy, and it comes back to what Dr. Masika was just saying, is policy is driven by opinions and information and knowledge from the community level. We cannot expect policymakers to develop policy if they don't have all of the information at their disposal. And it is vital that if there's elements that we feel is lacking in our existing policy, that evidence gets to our policymakers. And I believe that's what Dr. Masika was saying, is unifying many voices into one, but it's still that one voice is reliant on multiple angles. And if we want policy to be developed based on specific need, it's imperative that we ensure that policymakers get all of that information at their disposal. Otherwise, we can't blame them for not taking certain elements into consideration. They remain human.
Exactly. No, thanks for that. Thanks for that, André. Now, for some closing remarks from our speakers. If we are to successfully embed animal welfare for a country like South Africa into the One Health agenda, what steps do we need to take next? What actions have to be taken next? André?
I think, to me personally, the first step we need to take is to acknowledge and highlight the role of animal welfare within the One Health scheme. We have to make it very clear why animal health and animal welfare is such an important element. But I also believe we need to move away from being reactive towards being proactive, and saying that if we want to really actively incorporate animal welfare, we need to hear the voices from the community, and we need to work in unison to address those specific needs at the community level. If we ignore the community, we are always going to be reactive, because we'll always be 2 steps behind that real situation. And to amplify that voice of the community, promote synergy and collaboration amongst all of these stakeholders. Everybody has a voice. Everybody should contribute to having that voice made known.
No, I like that. I like that. Masika?
I think for me first is to acknowledge that governments like the South African government are already doing a lot. It may not be enough, but they're doing a lot. So leaving room for better, leaving room for improvement, and animal welfare is one of them. And like Andrea has said, when we center our policies around our communities, around our people, we create policies that protect before responding to any eventualities that come. So we need to, communities do not have to go through a zoonotic disease outbreak. It can be prevented.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Fiona?
I think you've said so much, and I think I can just build a little bit on that, is that we need more people at the table. And I think animal welfare, I think I mentioned earlier on that animal welfare is only just coming to certain discussions at this point in time. So as Dr. Masika said, South Africa is doing a lot. And here we are as a welfare community. Please use us. Please tap into our knowledge, into our resources, into what we can bring to the table so that we can do it together and have that collaborative work together. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Collaboration, I think it's something that is key, that is coming out. Communication between different stakeholders, having the capacity and the resources, and coordinating all these resources. These are all tenets of One Health, and I'm glad that they came through quite well today in our discussion. Now I'll cross over to Kajal, but thank you to our global audiences for giving us a lesson today. Kajal, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Tedson, and thank you to our panelists for that very, very insightful conversation and discussion. You've left us with a lot of food for thought. And if I may highlight some of it that, I really absorbed. Fiona, you highlighted the major challenges for companion animals, and you as well, Dr. André, and overpopulation challenges, how animal welfare is directly related to AMR and disease. About the wild animals and the zoonotics challenges and how it's actually spread, raising animals in environments that nurture them, and I think that's so important, and then obviously not treating them as commodities, but treating them as sentient beings as well. We also You know, when we talk about One Health, it's so important that it's integrated into our communities as well, and then into policies, and getting the public, like everyone watching today, involved and getting you thinking and your communities thinking about it. You know, for South Africa, we also want to see South Africa preserving its natural biodiversity and also aligning with global treaties, and also about how our trading of big cats and the commercial trade of it and the breeding of the wild cats, how that is actually sold to the public as conservation. And the public need to know these things, and this is how we continue to raise awareness around it. And if there are any words that stand out for me, and I think the words would be proactive, prevention, community dialogue, and coalition, giving us one voice and ultimately one health in South Africa, in Africa, and worldwide. So let's keep the conversation going in the comments. It was incredibly insightful, and I hope you also have a lot of food for thought. Go chat about it at the office, over dinner, with your friends, and I think that's where it starts for all of us, and that's where it starts for the animals. So let's hope we continue to create a world where humans treat animals with empathy, understanding, and respect. Goodbye, and thank you very much.